Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 40 Acres Show. It's not a post-game show. Obviously, no games to talk about, but still plenty of football news to talk about. I'm your host, Matthew Miller, and we are brought to you by the man down below on the ticker, Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. If you're not subscribed, please go over there and subscribe to his channel. He does great content. He might even be live right now talking the Jordan Addison news, which is sad news to us Texas fans, obviously. But there's still a lot to be happy about with this team. Obviously, you got a Jai Hall coming in. He's supposed to arrive in campus in June. Transfer wide receiver, a ton of talent. You have Quinn Ewers, the five-star quarterback in here. He's got a chance to be really good. Obviously, one of the highest rated recruits ever in the history of 247 football. So it's just a really good time right now to be a Texas fan. Heck, every offseason is a good time to be a Texas fan. It's in the season that we worry about. And obviously, getting to that point, one of the biggest issues and concerns is the offensive line. It's one of those things that's been a concern for a while. It's a bigger concern now. Hopefully, as we get into the season, it will become average. If it's an average offensive line, I really think this team has a chance to compete for a Big 12 championship. The Big 12 is going to be down this year with Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma. I don't really see Oklahoma State having a great year or Baylor. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Big 12 plays out. And I think Texas can be a team that is in that race down to the very end if the offensive line is average. If it's not, we're probably going to have a bad year again, just like last year. I think we'll be better regardless just because the skill positions on offense are better. And with Gary Patterson coming in to help the defense and another year in Pete Kwiatkowski's system, I think the defense will become naturally better. Yes, Corey, you are the first. Hopefully, we get some more people in here, get the comments section going. I'll lower my screen so you guys can see me better. And yeah, it's just one of those things where the offensive line, I mean, we couldn't even have a proper spring game because of it, because of the depth. Obviously, you have the 7 guys coming in this year's class. Hopefully, they'll be able to, some of them will be able to play right away. If I had to guess, I think Devon Campbell does play at guard right away. I don't think Kelvin Banks plays right away, but I do see him playing a lot. Watch out for Cam Williams at guard too as well. I think he could play a lot. But there's just a lot of concerns, obviously, on the offensive line and the defensive side of the football. Defense, we're very thin at the linebacker position. Steve Sarkisian will tell you that. Everyone who watched the program will tell you that. We really only have DeMarvion Overshawn, Jalen Ford, and David Gabenda. After that, it's very thin. You can get into Devin Richardson and then Travell Johnson and stuff like that. But I just don't see him playing a key role this year. I don't think Derek Brown will play much of a role either. Luke Brockmeyer obviously hurt. Who knows how much he'll play this year, if at all. So it's going to be very interesting to see if we can get someone in the transfer portal. And it'll be interesting to see who they can get at this point because most of those guys are gone. We didn't land O'Shawn Mathis, so that was a big deal, obviously, especially with the thin room that we have at linebacker. And he went to Nebraska. And I don't know if that's 100% NIL money. I don't know if that's more scheme and playing time could also factor into it as well. But I feel like playing time at Texas, he would have gotten some of that. Yeah, offensive line is going to be the biggest thing, Corey. I mean, it just is. I don't see how we become a great unit this year there. I think in the future we will with the amount of talent we brought in. If you can develop two of those guys that came in this class, then have another class on it, develop 2 of them, that's 4 offensive linemen. If you can have 4 out of your 5 offensive linemen be B-plus players, you have a pretty good offensive line to great offensive line. Obviously, great offensive line, you're going to have 5 B-plus to A players, and that's in Alabama. That's a Georgia's top offensive line. That's an Oklahoma line a couple years ago when they had Kyler Murray, and that's an LSU Joe Burrow type line. And we'll see if we can get there. Obviously, I trust our offensive line coach. I think he did a great job at Alabama. We'll see how he does here with Kyle Flood. He did a good job, obviously, when he was with offensive line at Rutgers when he was the head coach. So again, we'll see what happens. The offensive line did get better throughout the year last year. It was pretty bad in the beginning and became pretty close to average at the end of the year. I wouldn't say it was average, and that's the thing. I just want average. If this can be an average offensive line, we have enough playmakers to where we can be a top 10 offense in the country with an average offensive line. With an average offensive line, you can get the balls to Xavier Worthy, You can get the ball to Isaiah Nair. You can get the ball to Ajay Hall. You can get the ball to Bijan Robinson. You can get the ball to Roshan Johnson in space. And if you have a great run blocking offensive line, that would help out even more because you have Jonathan Brooks, you have Bijan Robinson, you have Roshan Johnson, and even Jaden Blue, if you wanted to get him involved. I think he'll be more involved in the passing game, though. I think he's great out of the backfield in that situation, so I think that'd be very nice to have as well. Sark talks about all gas, no breaks, but do you see him slowing it down to give the defense more time off the field? See, this is kind of the Herman philosophy. He didn't want to speed things up because he believed the defense would need time off the field to prepare and also just get their breath, and it didn't work. So personally, I think we're in the scenario with the amount of weapons we have, with the defense that we have, that you have to just go legitimately all gas, no breaks, score as many points as you can, and see and let the chips fall where they fall. And I think our key this year is we have to play like Oklahoma and the 2018, 2019, 2020 type seasons, where basically try to score touchdowns on every possession, score as many points as you can, and you're going to win games 60 to 50, 56 to 49, stuff like that. A W is a W at this point. As Texas fans, we cannot poke holes in W's. We have to get W's first to be able to poke holes in them. And 5-7 just doesn't get the job done. We need to be better than that. We need to be 8-4, in my opinion, this year. This is a building block here. I think Sark saw this program as something as he walked into, and it was you buy a plot of land for a house, and he decided what type of house he was building last year. He got his players in to build that foundation of the house this year, and then we just have to build it up to be whatever kind of house we want it to be. That's how I kind of see it, and I think Sark is the right guy for the job. I trust him more than Tom Herman. I'm not saying he's great, but I do think he's better than Tom Herman. Obviously, he'll have to prove me right on that, or he can prove me wrong the next couple years. I think again, this year is an 8-4 to a 9-3 type of year at best. I don't really see anything past that, only because I don't see when people talk about, oh, we're going to win the Big 12 championship or whatever. You have to pretty much have Quinn Ewers playing the best football he's going to be able to play in college. And then you're going to have to get the offensive line to play at a level that I don't know that they're ready to play at. I just don't see that happening this year. I do believe it will be built up, not this year, but next year. And that's when I expect to win the Big 12. That'll be Quinn Ewers' second year. It'll be his last year, most likely in college. You'll have Xavier Worthy in his last year in college. And you'll have Ajay Hall as well. And you also have, I believe, Jonathan Brooks. I know this is crazy to say. I expect him to put up better numbers in college than Bijan Robinson for the simple fact I believe he's going to run behind a better offensive line than Bijan Robinson. I believe he's going to learn more in the scheme and have time to develop under the scheme more than Bijan Robinson. So it would not shock me if he has a better college career than Bijan Robinson. Now, saying that does not mean he's a better player than Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson is one of the 3 most talented running backs we've ever had on the campus at Texas. And there's been a lot of talent to come through Texas, especially at the running back position. So that is what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's more talented. I'm saying I think he will have better production in the future because of the circumstances he will be put in. Why do I feel it's been harder for Sark and his assistants to recruit at the level on defense in comparison to the offense? That's a good question. And I think it's because Sark's an offensive coach. Sark is someone you've seen what his offensive system does for players, what it does for the quarterbacks, what it does for the wide receivers, what it does for the tight ends. He's not a defensive coach, so there's not really anything you can go on. You're basically going on Pete Kwiatkowski's record, which is very good at Washington. But again, the players that you're recruiting want to see it done at Texas. And I wouldn't be surprised when people recruit against Texas on the defensive side of the ball, they'll point to, yeah, Pete Kwiatkowski did this, but he did it with Jimmy Lake. Jimmy Lake is no longer there. So I think this is a very important year, not for just Pete Kwiatkowski, but everyone on the defensive side of the ball. Because if there isn't there has to be some progress there. We were one of the worst defense in the country last year. Again, if you can just move towards the average, if you become an average defense, if you're telling me this defense is average and the offensive line's average, this team, I think, could compete for a Big 12 championship. The problem is, do I believe that's going to happen? I don't this year. I think that's more of next year. I think the offensive line actually next year will probably be better than average. I think it'll be pretty close to good. The defense, I don't know. We'll have to see. We're losing a lot on that side of the ball next year, so that will be very interesting. Is there any way Bijan stays for a senior year? That's a good question. I do believe Bijan could stay his first senior year for the fact of how much money he's getting. Look at that. He has a sponsorship with Lamborghini, guys. If you're getting sponsored by Lamborghini, you're probably making up $100,000 to $1,000,000 just from that. He's got it with Canes. He's got it with C4 energy drinks, among countless others. I'm sure he's bringing in a couple $1,000,000. Now, if you're Texas and you really think you have a chance to do something like super special, like make the playoffs, I think it would be very much in the interest of the University of Texas to pay Bijan Robinson double whatever he's making this year. My guess is probably between $3 to $5 million, double that. And if he's making $6 to $10 million for a senior year, that's probably about as much as he'd make his first year in the NFL. And he'd probably be like, why not? I can get a little bit better. I can even increase my draft stock if I play better in college, and I get paid $6 to $10 million a year. So yeah, there's a chance, especially with NIL. Without NIL, I would say there's no chance. That's just not going to happen. Anthony Hill, is that who you mean? And I think there's a good chance. That's a position we definitely need. He's obviously a very good player. There's a lot of good players in the state on the defensive side of the football that are coming out next year. That'll be interesting. Obviously, everyone wants to talk about Arch Manning, but our quarterback room is pretty set. Like, if you just told me we don't get Arch Manning and we still have Malik Murphy and Quinn Ewers, I would take that. I'm more concerned with the defensive side of the ball. I even think the offensive line, if you only brought in like 2 to 3 more guys this year, that'd be fine. But we need to load up on the defensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball is an issue. It's an issue all over the place. There's really not much at safety right now. There's not much at linebacker. The defensive line is kind of loaded, and it has young talent that I think will get better. Obviously, you have Byron Murphy. I think he's going to have a breakout sophomore year. I think Justice Finkley's a dog. I think he's going to be a very good player. So those are 2 guys to keep an eye on this year and moving forward. I think Derek Brown has a chance to be a pretty good player off the edge. So we'll have to see. But yeah, linebacker, safety, corner are definitely areas we have to key on. And we have good players there right now, but the problem is after this year we won't. We were very lucky that Anthony Cook decided to stay. He's going to transition to safety. I think he's going to be a pretty good safety. He played great at the nickel position last year. So if he can be 75 to 80% at safety of what he was at nickel, he'll be a solid safety and probably get drafted in the 3rd or 4th round as a safety if he does that, if he's 75 to 80% of what he was at nickel. So it'll be interesting. Obviously, we really haven't had great safety play since Caden Stern's freshman year. BJ Foster was pretty good that year as well. And obviously, he's not with the program anymore. And then Caden Stearns is in the NFL with my Denver Broncos. I'm a Denver Broncos fan. And you finally get to see Caden Stearns' talent. He's probably going to start for the Broncos this year. I expect him to actually play more than Kareem Jackson, who they signed. So that will be very interesting because that guy's got talent. His only issue was being put in the wrong position and also staying healthy. If he had those 2 things, he would have been fantastic at Texas, no doubt. And then BJ Foster, again, just one of those guys that was super inconsistent. There was plays you'd see like, yeah, that looks like a 5-star. Then there are other plays you'd be like, man, he's terrible. And a lot of that had to do with effort as well. And then Corey Peacock, of course, everyone wants to know opinions on Saban. It was very weird. Saban really doesn't really talk about that most of the time. Him and Jimbo have been going back and forth for a while now. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, Jimbo said, we're going to beat them in football or we're going to beat them. And Nick Saban commented in what, golf? I believe he said either golf or tennis. And everyone laughed. And then they beat him. And then there's been other comments made about recruiting as well. And then the comments made by Saban again was like, yeah, they bought everyone. And they did. Texas A&M did buy everyone. But guess what? That's legal now. And that's their right to do that. It's a fair game for everyone now. If you want to pay as much money for a recruit as possible, you can. Nico, the quarterback that's going to be enrolled at Tennessee in 2024, if he stays with his commit, which I'm sure he will be, is going to be paid $8 million, guys, before he even takes a snap. That's insane to me. I don't know if that's per year or that's total. If it's a year, that's even more insane. You're talking 3 years, $24 million for a guy that's never guaranteed before he's even taken a snap. That's absolutely insane to me. But I think it was just the pot calling the kettle black. This guy's been paying people for years. Everybody's been paying people for in college football, but he's been doing it more because, let's be honest here, recruits aren't just like, oh, let's go sign up with Nick Saban in Alabama. He only had 1 national championship at the time, guys, and he started getting recruits like crazy after only producing 1 national championship and going 7-5 in his first year. So I don't think I think he paid recruits a lot of money early on, and then he kind of like drew that back a little bit because guess what? At that point, he had won multiple national championships at Alabama, and that sells as well because once you have proven that, then you can just say, well, look, if you come here, you'll win a national championship or at least compete for it, and I can get you in the NFL draft early on. They have countless players drafted in the first round, countless players drafted in the second round. That's where you make most of your money, even the third round to an extent. So once he got that going, I believe he probably drew back or took back some of that money and didn't pay as much as he did early on. But they're paying people now, and they should. Obviously, everyone's doing it, so there's no issue with that. College players should be able to make their money off their name, image, and likeness. I don't really like the way it's being done now, where boosters are basically just paying players. I don't like that. I wish it was like what Bijan Robinson is doing. He's going out to C4 energy drinks. He's getting it from there. He's getting it from Cane's Chicken. He's getting it from or Raising Cane's, I should say. And then he's also getting it from Lamborghini. That's the way it should be done. It shouldn't be done where even I disagree. I'm fine with it right now, but someone needs to put stipulations and rules in place of how we're paying like the offensive line. Like as soon as you sign up, it's basically a fake fund, and boosters have a lot of money, are giving $50,000 to each recruit that comes in on the offensive line. I have an issue with that. That I don't think should be done, but it is what it is right now. I think it's in a weird position. Like I said, the guy from Tennessee that hasn't even taken a snap yet reports $8 million. I believe is Nico Imilavia. I don't really know how to pronounce his last name, but that's also going to take care of itself because at some point, someone's going to be paid big bucks like that. They're not going to be good. And then it will you'll see the price drop tremendously from that because no one's going to want to take that risk anymore once they see that. So far, it's in the first year and a half of and it's going to, by the end of this year, will be the second year. And that hasn't happened. That could happen with Quinn Ewers. Of course, it would be Texas. That would be our luck when the highest rated recruit comes in. We pay him probably decently well. Ohio State paid him $1.4 million to be basically the third string quarterback. And if he doesn't pay off, you won't see that stuff handed out in that big a number before you pop off, I should say. And also, it's going to be interesting because there's been talks of what if we just tied it to how many games you played, all that type of stuff. Well, that'd basically just be an NFL contract at the point, and I don't want that. I basically just want the market to hand out what is deserved to each player and not for schools to decide or guaranteeing money to prospects. I think that's stupid. I don't think it's needed, but we'll see what happens. And then obviously Corey, you just brought it up. Have you heard anything about Addison visiting Bama? Because Texas shows say no Bama, but fans are all saying yes. He just announced today that he is going to USC. So I think this was a situation where he was headed to USC all along and he just wanted to drive his price up, or he just wanted to go through the recruiting process. Because let's be honest, this guy wasn't super highly rated coming out of high school. That's why he went to Pitt in the first place. And he decided to go there. And then I do have an issue. Another thing with this, you should not be poaching people off. If this is true, where he's getting contacted by other coaches, hey, we got $5 million if you come here. I have a gigantic issue with that, especially smaller schools cannot compete if you're doing that. I have a gigantic issue. Now, if a guy's smart enough to see I'm at a small school, I'm really good, these big schools want me, puts his name in the portal, and then gets contacted, no issue with that. But I have an issue with the guy being on a roster and a coach saying, hey, I got $5 million for you over here. How about you come play for us? I have a gigantic issue with that. Second, like I said, I think Caleb Williams was basically the same thing as Jordan Addison, whereas it was pretty obvious all along where he was going. He just wanted to play the game. He just wanted to drive up his price, stuff like that. So I'm not shocked. It would have been very nice to have him at Texas. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you're talking about Isaiah Nair, Jordan Addison, Xavier Worthy, and then Jordan Whittington with Ajay Hall. That's a very deep wide receiver room. That's 5 deep. And you could afford, heck, 2 of those guys get injured, and you still have 3 very good wide receivers on the field at one time. So, along with Jaleel Billingsley, who's a very good receiving tight end, and Jatavian Sanders. I mean, we're loaded on the offensive side, so it doesn't hurt that we didn't get him, but he definitely would have helped, no doubt about that. He's one of the 5 best receivers in college football. We probably would have had 2 of the top 5 wide receivers in the country with him, and 3 of probably the top 25 to 30 with him, Isaiah Nair and Xavier Worthy. So that would have been very nice, but it is what it is, and we will recover from that. It'll be interesting because I believe this opens up the room even more for someone like Brendan Thompson. I think he can come in and make a bigger impact now, since Addison isn't coming. And then Sark did talk about adding another wide receiver, so he may want to add someone in the portal. I mean, obviously Marcus Washington transferred. I love that guy. He did everything we asked for him to do. He went out there, blocked his ass off when he was asked to. So he did a fantastic job at the University of Texas. I have nothing bad to say about Marcus Washington. I wish him luck on wherever he goes. Do you see where the kids have agents coming out of high school because of NIL? So basically, this has been happening for a while now. Not just it could start happening now, but there's always been NFL agents talking with high school football players and then pushing them to one school. And basically, the school will pay the agent, and then the agent will pay the player, or the school will set up the parent with a job, or yeah, set up the parent of that prospect with a job or something. Like that stuff's been going on forever. I mean, that happened with Evan Mobley in basketball with USC. His dad became an assistant coach. I don't even know if he's there right now. I think he may have just been there for Evan Mobley's freshman year. That stuff happens all the time, guys. It's been happening forever. Really, none of this is new. We all know about it now. It's all out in the news. Before, it was behind closed doors. There was the Eric Dickerson stuff back in the '80s where the guys getting Trans Ams from SMU and Texas A&M, and guess what? He kept both of them, because the thing is, they can't ask for him back because it was illegal what they were doing, so it didn't matter. And good on him. That's smart. I would have done the same thing. So it's all just out there now. We didn't know about it before out in the open like this. We caught a few glimpses of it here and there because they did a great job of keeping it a secret. I mean, there's this great YouTube video. It's a 3-parter talking about Laramie Tunsil and Ole Miss and all the stuff there about how they paid players and how sneaky it was. It was crazy. They'd go to a church parking lot in the middle of the night with a $50,000 briefcase and hand it to somebody, and then that would be like the middleman for the recruit. Then the middleman would drop it off at the recruit's house. It's crazy how it used to operate. It's way better like it is now, but it's still not perfect. Obviously, it will never be perfect, but we can at least strive to get better in that situation and in this area. But that has definitely been happening. Again, I just don't want it to become like the NFL. I think college and the NFL are separate for a reason, obviously, not just because of age, but the product's totally different. And I think it's cool that the product's totally different. Yeah, two, the same thing, it wouldn't be as interesting to me. And I'd take a lot of the pageantry out of college football. And pageantry is what makes college football. The fans are what make it. And there aren't as many diehard fans in the NFL as there is college. There are some, but there's just not as many. But that's a good question, Corey. But overall, I mean, there's been a lot of news with Texas, and I think we're not done. I fully expect us to get another transfer too. I wouldn't be surprised if we have some late transfers out of the program. That wouldn't completely shock me. But I would say overall, it's been a successful offseason. You get someone like Ryan Watts at cornerback. You get Quinn Ewers. You get a really good offensive line class. You get a Jai Hall, Jaleel Billingsley. It's just going to be interesting. Like I said, who ends up being the starting offensive line. If I had to guess, I would probably say Angulau Majors. I don't know though, because Angulau looked pretty good at center, and Hayden Connor can play basically anywhere. So if I had to just guess the 5 guys that will play the most this year, not really starters, but play the most, I would probably go with Angulau, Connor, Campbell, Jones, and then I'd probably have to go Majors. I believe that was 5 guys I named. And those would be the 5 guys. I don't know where you'd fit them all, but basically throw them in there and see who wins out. It's going to be interesting. It really is. I don't know how it's going to hold up. It's going to be, like I said, in the spring game, it was kind of like you could see progress by some players on some plays, and then other players are like, what are you doing out there? So it's just very interesting. Do you think Ewers knew from an early stage he wouldn't stay at Ohio State? And if you do think he or Sark reached out to the other, no, I don't think. I do think Quinn Ewers would have been at Texas right away if Tom Herman wasn't the coach. So I do believe in my heart that he went there first off because Tom Herman was the coach of Texas. So he's like, I'm just going to go to my second option, especially when that second option is offering $1.4 million, and you can't earn that in Texas high school because of the rules. So he decided, I'm going to graduate early from high school, go to Ohio State, sat the bench, got $1.4 million. I doubt Sark reached out, because I think Sark was pretty content for the most part with Hudson Card, or even looking, or he said he was looking around at other quarterbacks. I think he was pretty content with looking around at other quarterbacks. Then when Ewers jumped in, he decided to go for it, obviously. And I don't think Sark's that type of guy. He doesn't seem like that type of guy. I think that was him before he had his addiction, or he still has his addiction issues before he came to his realization of being an addict. I think that was him. Usually addicts are very selfish, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was something out Washington he would have done where he's calling all over the place. But I don't see him doing that now. I think he's very a changed person. I think that's one of the reasons I like him. Had a real life struggles and experience, and he seems like he's way more humble than Tom Herman. But he is but he is also has that edge to him as well. Can an athlete reach out to another school themselves wanting to transfer? So basically how they do that is they'll reach out to their high school coach and have their high school coach reach out to other teams, or their high school coach will be contacted by other teams, and the high school coach will contact the player. That's how they do it most of the time. Again, all dumb stuff. I wish it was just the players could contact. Like if the player doesn't want to enter the transfer portal because he doesn't know if there's a spot for him on another team, so he calls up another team. He's like, "Listen, I want to come there. Do you have a spot for me?" I actually don't have an issue with that, but the player should have to initiate everything. I don't think a coach should be able to call up someone and try to coerce them into joining their team. I think that's wrong. It's basically like NFL free agency, and college coaches. I mean, you've heard college coaches complain about that, and obviously, I think they have a right to. But then there's also the other side of that where college coaches can leave whenever they want as well. But it's just different to me. They're not like the college coaches are. It's just a different scenario, and they don't affect the program for the most part. There are some college, like if Nick Saban were to leave, that's totally different. But for the most part, your middle tier coach is leaving doesn't affect programs as much as you think it does. But obviously, if Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, Ryan Day, those or not even Ryan Day. I think most people can win at Ohio State, but like Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, I think those guys do. That's a good question though, but that is how it's done. Is they usually reach out to the high school coaches, or the high school coaches reach out to them for the player, so they don't get in trouble. If you guys have any more questions, keep them coming. I'll probably be on here for a little bit longer. If we had more people, I would stay on longer, but unfortunately we do not. If you can, please hit the like button down below. It really helps out the channel. Seriously, hit the like button. Share this out with people if you can. Go to MarkRogersTV, subscribe to his channel, like his videos, and subscribe to this channel, like these channels' videos. We're trying to grow this. I would like to, realistically, by the beginning of the season, have 5,000 subscribers on this Texas channel. That is the goal. I'm going to try to come out with more content. I'm going to be here every Thursday at 8 p.m. doing a live show. If we have a lot of people, I'll go for an hour. Or two, but tonight we don't have as many as I would have hoped. I'll try to get this out even sooner, like the alert set up for the video. I was running late at work today, so I was not able to do that. But every Thursday, 8 p.m. right here on YouTube. And please subscribe, please hit that like button, and keep the comments coming, and please share it as well. It really helps out the channel. Corey, if you want to keep the comments coming, you can. If not, I'm probably going to jump off here and watch the NBA games, because I think playoff basketball is fun. Obviously NHL playoffs are going on as well. I don't really watch that, but I was at the gym yesterday and I saw the hockey score 9-6. So that would have been a fun game to watch between, what was it, Calgary and Edmonton. So that would have been a fun game. Your feelings on the noon kickoff against Bama. Bama fans are not happy. It actually helps Texas. First off, you're playing in the Texas heat that you're conditioned to play in, because that's the conditions you practice in. So it's going to help you. And I think that's the reason why the 2019 LSU game was so close. I believe if that game is played at the Dome, we probably lose that game by 14 to 17 points, which is still relatively close versus one of the three best teams in the history of college football, in my opinion. But this Alabama team may be just as good as that team. You have Will Anderson on that side of the ball. You have Bryce Young on the other side on the offensive side of the ball. In my opinion, probably the two best players in college football, which is pretty insane to say. I don't know how often you get that, where you get the two best players, one on offense, one on defense, on one college football team. And I think it's going to help us if it does happen. Do I think it's good for the game? No. That game should be played at 7:30 to 8:30 at night. That's a primetime game, and 12 o'clock for the most part is you want your B minus C+ games on that time. You shouldn't have big time college football played at that time. It's just a bad time slot, to be honest with you. So that is my biggest issue, but I don't have an issue with like the temperature and stuff like that. Like if you're complaining about that as a Texas fan or an Alabama fan, you're sorry. Playing the conditions that are there that day, they affect both teams not equally, because I don't think Alabama heat's the same as Texas. I don't know. I've never been to Alabama. I have been to Texas. So that's going to be something for Alabama. It'll be interesting when Nick Saban or any of their players are asked that, because they have Texas players on their roster, and even Florida. Florida heat's just as bad. And see what they have to say about playing a noon kickoff. But I think, like Sark said, I think he doesn't give a shit when the game's kicked off. We'll be ready to go. And that's the attitude you got to have, because if you start thinking about, oh, I don't want to play now, I want to play then, you've already lost the game at the point. And you can't do that versus Alabama. They already have a gigantic talent edge where it comes to the talent plus the experience. We have talent. We just don't have experience. So I expect that to be, I think they'll beat us by about 14 to 20 points. I don't think it will be any more than 3 touchdowns. So I would hope not. But I do think Alabama is the best team in the country this year. I think them and Ohio State are probably going to play in the national championship game. That's one other thing about college football. Not enough parity. Like, it's pretty obvious Bama's going to be in the college football playoff. I think it's pretty obvious Ohio State's going to be in the college football playoff. The other 2 spots are up for grab, and that'll be interesting. I think USC's got a chance because the Pac-12 is not good at all, and Caleb Williams is super talented, and now you have Jordan Addison on top of that. That's a pretty good team, just right. Those 2 by themselves could probably win the Pac-12 if you have average defense with them, because the Pac-12 is not that good, especially with Mario Cristobal leaving for Miami. And I think Miami's going to be decent this year. I don't think they're going to be like 9-3, 10-2, but I think they can be 7-5, 8-4, which is a nice first season for Cristobal. And I think he's bringing back the Miami culture to that program, the hard-nosed, like cocky attitude. And I think that's good. Yeah, I knew what you meant, Corey. I know you meant noon. Again, please like this video. Please share it if you can. Go over to Mark Rogers TV, like his videos, subscribe to him. Go over to his channels, his videos, or no, go over to his channel. Go to channels, and you'll scroll down. You'll see a bunch of college football channels. Please like their videos. Please subscribe to them. Again, we're trying to grow this college football brand that Mark Rogers has. He's given me a voice. He's given countless other voices, and he makes great products. So please subscribe down below. Please like the videos as well. I think that's all I'm going to have for you guys today. Again, I'm going to be here every day at 8, or not every day, every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll talk Texas football. We can talk college football. We can talk whatever you want sports related, but it's mostly going to be Texas football and college football. So please tune in every Thursday at 8 p.m. Share this out with people so we can get more subscribers, more viewers, more likes, more comments. Again, you guys drive this this live show, because to be honest, there's a little bit to talk about, but you really can't film more than 30 minutes with just me talking. There's not enough in college football to do that, especially with Texas football right now. So please subscribe, please share it out, please come in droves, put your comments down. I can answer questions, we can have a back and forth. But for you guys that have been here and you guys that are going to watch this video, thank you again. Hit that like button. Have a good night.